Hello, and welcome to another installment of Cheap and Cheerful, trying to help you spend your precious pennies wisely. Today we are talking about Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. This is the most recent Criterion version, not the two other versions from days gone by. And they really have nothing in common besides the name. This time around you're getting an open world, quote unquote, open world game where you can play both the cops and the racers. Really, it's pretty standard fare. Both campaigns are very similar and not really campaigns in that there's much of a story. There's just progression that's separate on either side. The race types between the two sides are almost identical, with the obvious exception of the pursuit ones, where as the police you try to take down the racers, and as the racers you try to escape. But besides that, you have your standard time trials, one versus the clock, or cookie cutter street races, no police involved. The last big mechanic is the gadget system. These are things like spike strips, EMPs, helicopters, etc. The type and number of gadgets you get is specific to each individual race in the game. So while it's loading, it'll just tell you what you get to use. And then by reaching certain levels, you level up those gadgets, making them more effective, dropping more spikes, or your helicopter lasts for longer. But there's no skill tree. You don't get to choose where these things go. It's just a straight progression. Despite all this, and including the obligatory Criterion crash cams, this game just fails to capture the spirit of the old ones. This one just feels generic. The driving mechanics are really slidey, just absolutely arcade to the max. It makes some of the time trials where you have to avoid touching any walls or any traffic particularly tough in a frustrating sort of way. Then there's the open world. Like I said at the top, quote unquote open world. There is an open world. You can load into the world with a car and blast around, drive everywhere, on the roads of course. But there's no reason to do that. There's no random cop encounters, no other racers, you don't unlock anything. It's literally the identical world from your races. It just doesn't have the barriers put up around. I loaded in once or twice and never did it again. There was no reason to. I'm not sure why it's there. This doesn't really take away from the game while you're playing it as such, but don't be fooled by anything saying it's open world. It's odd, being that they've done the open world thing better before in previous games. Piling on this train of mediocrity are the cars, which don't really feel very different because of that arcade driving style. Sure, some of them clearly are faster, but that just makes them a little harder to control, honestly. And unlocking the cars doesn't even really add anything to the game. You're just given them. As you level up, you get better cars. And then certain races lock you into certain classes or certain vehicles. If you're looking for a little positivity, it does look nice. For the most part, the cop missions are decent fun, at least the ones that aren't just time trials. Although some of the one-on-one takedown missions got a little frustrating, with the AI just going down the freeway, pulling a U-turn, driving back from the direction they just came, and then repeating that back and forth till you finally manage to predict which way they're going to turn or when they're going to suddenly slam on their brakes. Other than that, this is just mediocrity. It's run-of-the-mill, nothing really setting it apart. There are lots of games that are better. There are games that are worse. It just doesn't take any risks. So I think the final verdict is probably pretty clear here. Money-wise, the cheapest I've ever seen it is $5. You probably can get $5 worth of fun, at least out of the cop modes, for this. The problem is, time-wise, I don't really think it's worth it. If you want to take down cars, there are other racing games that do everything else in the game better as well. So in the end, I'm going to have to recommend a pass on this, really, in all accounts. Unless you're just a absolute hardcore racer fan, love everything about the genre, just can't get enough driving cars fast, and you like that arcade style, this probably isn't worth your time or money. So, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. Not bad, but you can do better. This has been Cheap and Cheerful. Thank you for watching, and as always, you can find more at youtube.com/CAC Games.